Okay. I have a great role today to talk you a little bit about my view on democratizing energy, about ethical data use within this topic of democratizing energy. I'm coming from the industry. I was a former utility person, so I will try to bring aspect of the utility into this in the new democratic way of how we do our energy systems, how we live our energy systems, and how we actually take the challenges, especially from the perspective of a utility. So, shaping the future of data use. So we all, I think, have the feeling today that the art of data utilization has been monopolized by the IT companies. I wouldn't say this is on purpose. It's just happened. The technology runs over some things, and then things happen, and then we are stuck in a system where we ask ourselves, actually, okay, how should I come up with this? How can I jump onto this train? And this is very difficult, especially from a company which is a historical, grown company and has a lot of issues, needs to be struggled. So when we take a look on the companies like Alphabet, like Amazon, like Facebook, it's not only that they have collected in the past years a bunch of new data and used this data for different purposes. It's also very, very interesting to observe how their capability to reinvent whole business model, to bring totally new business model into the market, and somehow we feel helpless with this, because each time we think we came up with something cool, something new, something really consumer-driven, we actually get to the point, okay, it's not that wow, because these guys come with something which is really completely disrupting the way how we drive business model, how we use things, how we approach products and business models. But where are we stuck today? Actually, if you think in terms of data and how wild this journey is, we are at the moment in a point when we think all kind of data, personal data, business data, also a lot of public sector data, protected, unprotected, have been collected by these companies. They're processed by them. They use them, and it's just behind the wall. It's in a black box. We just don't know. They collect our data, for example, here in Europe. They process it somewhere in Asia or the US. We don't know for what purposes, in what kind, or what this is good for. It's just a black box for us. So at some point, we need to think about which way does this go? Is it actually okay for us, not for a company, for utility or for IT company to take this way? Is it really okay for us, for each one of us in terms of our rights, our personalities, that our data are used in this way? So I really want to move to energy industry because this is why we are here today. So concerning energy industry, in my opinion, the moment of change has come. And this is really hardly driven by the technology, on the one hand. And on the other hand, we have now really, really very interesting change, which is really driven by decarbonizations, by climate change, and by all discussion that's in the moment in our society. But there is, I think, one more important moment when we think about the energy industry, and it's that each one of us, and we are consumers, we realize actually it's possible. It's possible to do energy in a democratic way, in a decentralized way, in a completely new way. It's really possible for us to reinvent this environment. And I think also utilities and all we as industry experts, we have some capabilities and knowledge, and maybe we are one step forward than IT companies and all other ones who are really struggling also for this market and will struggle even more and be more and more becoming competitors to utilities in the futures. So the biggest driver actually is the renewable energy production. So we all know this. This already happened. This is happening every day, actually, more and more and more. However, the issue is that the distribution system and energy markets still remains centralized. So we have an issue at the moment that power generation is decentralizing more and more and more every day, but actually the systems who are controlling it and they are actually having the purpose, and the utilities have the purpose to control this and then to do something out of this, are still centralized, and this just does not match. So the question is, how do we want to design the future of the market, the future, and what is the role of the utilities? And if the utilities still stick with their centralized thinking and centralized strategy, then actually the renewables and the change of the system will, in terms of utility, be actually replacement of their fossil energy production to renewable. And this is really not something wow or something special. You know, I just put away a thermal power plant, I put a PV power plant there, put a little bit of storage, and I'm like in the game. But this is really very short thinking, in my opinion, because even if we make the goal for utility and for the countries, the climate change goals, it will not enable the utility to become a part of future decentralized consumer systems, and they will just stay on the side. I would like to explain actually what I think about democratizing the energy system. So massive progression of solar energy production is driving the decentralization of installed power. And in the case of installed power, these are the systems, as you can see on the graph, which are on the left side, and they are not connected to a grid. They are trading their energy and will be in the future even more and more in the small communities, as Stan already pointed out. They will connect storage capacity into that system. And what actually does this mean? This doesn't only mean, and I think this is what the utilities just seem maybe a little bit too short. This doesn't only mean that the utility is losing customers because they don't need any more energy from the utility because they produce their own energy or storage it. The real point is that these guys, this installed power is becoming invisible for the centralized system. So each year there is more and more installed power and more capacity, which is just invisible to the players which today are providing the centralized system, stabilizing the systems and whatsoever. But at some point, when we move forward into the future, the whole huge parts of our countries, of our regions, will not be visible anymore for the players. And I think this is actually where the utilities need to start thinking. If I lose part of the system, which became just invisible for me, how do I come along with this? And how should I reinvent myself to become, again, a very, very huge and very, very important part of the energy systems? Even more, it's not only that this part is invisible for the utilities, it's that the consumers are from day to day more and more enabled to make more informed, more granular decisions about their energy consumption. So the control also shifts away from the centralized system and from the centralized monopolized utilities. And this goes another step. And the next step, or it's already, actually, all this is in place. It's just a question how do I think about this? And more of the control systems, and now we talk about the IoT and AI and all the technology that enable this, they will allow services beyond comfort and lifestyle, and they will just participate in balancing and optimizing of the local grid. So actually, this is the future. And then we maybe raise the question at this point, so what can be one of the roles maybe of utilities in the future? Because I don't think that the utility is really ready to step off this stage, this huge stage. So decentralized systems are based on collaboration, so the mind shift is actually needed. And collaboration needs strong partnerships, and partnerships are always based on trust. And in my opinions, utilities should really accept this challenge. They can really innovate themselves, because myself coming from a utility, there are so many smart people there, so many people who are really taking the challenge of energy, technology and everything in different levels. So they are capable, but the mind shift is needed. This is actually the clue, I think. But coming back, the key is the trust. And I think this is where I personally see also the entrance point for the utilities. Because when we see how we live today, actually, all our transactions are done through platforms in digital way. Also, if we think, no, that there is no handing over, maybe when I buy a bread or something, I give money, but everything else, what I do is processed through digital platforms. And this is also what's going to be, what will come in energy business more and more. So it will just go on the digital way. It doesn't need any intermediate, and it doesn't need a controlling power centralized in the middle of the system. So if you think about the market position of the companies, we were talking about, on my first slide, about Alphabet and Facebook and Amazon. And if you really think about their business model and how do they actually act with the data, they are highly monopolized. So they are not that cool and that like consumer-driven or whatsoever. You know, they just do that, they market themselves like that. But actually, truly deeply inside, they're really monopolistic system. They really want to have the fully power of the data and the full power of the systems they provide to us. And they are really making ecosystems, creating ecosystems for us. Just think about Amazon Prime and all of these things. These are not open access systems. We cannot be part of this system in a way that we would maybe like. This is not an individual thinking is not asked in the systems. And this is maybe then how we really, in terms of energy systems, I think that utilities can reinvent themselves, reinvent these decentralized thinkings, and with other stakeholders can really participate in a democratic energy system, especially in a system of a power generation, of a supply and power markets which are based on transparency and trust. So the key to the new system, just to make a short step on the left. So technology is, of course, the key, because without the technology, this all wouldn't be possible. We are talking here, well, I would like just shortly to point up, of course, the blockchain, because it's really a system, a technology, actually it's a database which enables us to have this level of trust that we need to really can roll out these business models and to actually reinvent the system in a democratic way and in a decentralized way. It's a really fostering transparency and trust, and I think, in my opinion, it offers an egalitarian model around data ownership and data access. So I think blockchain is going to really be a very important key factor in energy industry in the future. And together with the AI and IoT, I think we can, the way is free for the next generation of utilities. So, however, but we know all, I think, that technology alone will never provide us a sustainable system if we do not make it to our own playground. Then it's just a boring technology and nobody cares about it. It needs to really become our playground, and we need to feel comfortable as a consumer within this playground. So every participant of the future system, in my opinion, can choose appropriate role. It's just a question, will you take the moment, choose your real role, and the role that really enables you to go together with the customer to walk into that future and to reinvent yourself. And we really can be all part, and especially also the utilities, of creating a sustainable environment in terms of energy systems. And when I come back to the data, the use of data in this context, in my opinion, will become a burning question. And no matter if for the fact that data are and will be a trading good, because now I think they are not to that extent that they could already be today, to have a real value. We have some value of data, but it's not monetized in a way that I think that it should be. But I think this will come. But also I think the awareness of consumers in terms how we use the data, what we do with the data, how we process them, access, ownership will highly increase. When we see the next generation coming, how they approach to climate changes, we can expect also this radical approach of this generation to data use, data operability, data access, data ownership. So here, I think a massive change in thinking will come, and we will go away from this thinking like, I don't care, if I can feel comfortable, I'll give away my data. I don't think that next generation will have this approach to their own data. And now I come again to the positioning of today's utilities. And I think they can take this role of trust if they can implement this thinking for themselves. Because in opposite to IT companies, utilities have been a part of our systems, of our way to live, of our cities, municipalities for for decades. So we have some sort of trust, and especially Europeans are really like a little bit of conservative and trustful people. So we still believe these big brands, and we are at the same time annoyed by them, but I think we trust more a local utility than we trust Google or Amazon or whatsoever, also maybe coming from different part of the world. So in my opinion, in this case, really the DNA of a traditional utility, especially of the municipality one, is a perfect one. And if utilities can really take this role for their own, especially the state-owned ones, because when it concerns privacy issues, when talking about data access, usage, consumers can, at the end, and this is also the tradition, the legal tradition in Europe at least, can always and only address the state. Because in terms of human rights or my data privacy, I cannot address an IT company, but I can really address my city, my municipality, and of course, I have some constitutional rights in Europe in these terms. So I bring somehow together this tradition of Europeans, the legal system of Europeans, and try to reinvent the role of utility again, maybe, to say it like this. So in my perspective, if you look from that perspective, but driving the utility strategy in the right direction, this sector can grow. Because we all think now the utility sector is increasing because new market liberalization, new competitors come into the market, this centralized system cannibalize actually the centralized power generation and power supply. And this could actually be the moment that each utility can jump on and reinvent themselves and say, no, I don't want to be a central power anymore, but I want to be your point of trust. And this would be my proposal to go for it. And this does only mean, the first move needs to be actually to understand how to use accessible data in the way that really supports our tradition, consumers, the way that we will use and act in terms of data in the future. And I see this as a really huge chance for the utilities. Maybe, I will say a little bit radical, maybe also the only chance to really grow in the future and to have a sustainable business within energy communities and decentralized energy systems. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask you a question. I'm curious, I don't remember which way you voted, let's say, at our moral dilemma with the algorithm. Would you allow an algorithm deciding for you?
Dear Loretta, I would never allow the algorithm to decide for me.
But you did discuss about AI, yeah?
This discussion is very tricky for me because, you know, I'm a lawyer and I had a lot of these discussions like, you know, you have an airplane will crash in a huge city and should we shoot the airplane or not? And from an ethical and moral discussion, you can never shoot an airplane because you really don't know where it's crashing and when it's going to crash. So I don't like this type of discussion because it's an absolute one. And in our systems, especially when we talk about moral ethics and the right decision, you don't have an absolute. You cannot go for that radical and absolute discussion, you know. There are so many layers and you really need to think about where we live, what's actually our approach, and why we are humans and not machines. And I see technology only as an enabler and not more. So,
Moral relativism, I would say, however.
exactly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions
Thank
for
you.
Lorena now? No? Okay, then in that case, we are going to have a short break, half an hour. And I urge you to come back because we have a couple of very interesting presentations plus a panel discussion. See you in half an hour.